Today on the Button Up Podcast, we have Kirby Allison from Kirby Allison's Hanger Project. Great to talk to you, Kirby.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me.
Kirby Allison down in Dallas, correct?
Yep, that's right, Dallas, Texas.
And you've always been there?
I grew up in Houston, went to school in Austin, spent some time in New York, but knew I always wanted to end up back in Texas. So I just got started with it after I graduated, came up to Dallas where my first job was.
Down with your friends over at Mizzen in Maine. That's the main
Yeah,
company
that's
I know
right.
over in Dallas.
Yeah, Kevin's a good friend of mine, actually.
Yeah,
So
Kevin,
I actually know Kevin.
he's gone off and departed Mizzen in Maine. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird.
It's a small world. I've got a funny Mizzen and Maine story. So, back in the day, this is a long time ago, before Kevin started Mizzen and Maine, we shared a UPS account rep. And she knew he was like trying to start Mizzen and Maine, so she put us in touch. And so Kevin actually came and sat in my office and kind of pitched me the idea of Mizzen and Maine and said, I'm thinking about doing this. You've got all this experience, any advice you can give me. And, I don't remember if my advice at all was helpful, but it's kind of funny. I mean, this was back before he'd ever started. I should have quit my job and gone to work for him.
Well, you wouldn't have been alone if you told him it was an odd idea. I just saw an
Yeah.
article that said, Brooks Brothers in 2013, the CEO was like, oh, nobody wants performance dress shirts. They want cotton. And they just put out a performance dress shirt this week.
Yeah. I'm still such a snob that, I've got a few of his shirts, and like if I'm out on the weekend with the kids or something, I'll wear them.
Mm-hmm.
But you just can't replace the hand and the feel, in my opinion, of just 100% natural fiber. And, that kind of brings it back to just the ethos of the Hanger Project, and that is quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. And, all this technology is great, but there's just something in the hand of real natural materials that can't be replicated with even the best technology. And, there's a huge market for his shirts. Both of my brothers are huge Mizzen and Maine customers, but, it's like myself or, any of my close friends that are kind of into this space with me and share my passions, really would never think of it.
Mm-hmm. I guess if there's still a market for cargo shorts, there can be a market for
Yes.
cotton
Yeah.
shirts and for performance dress shirts.
And for performance dress shirts. At least it hopefully gets more men wearing dress shirts because, as we're in the midst of this rebound to quality right now. And, to a certain extent, I'm just happy to see men dressing up. And it's like, I don't go buy suit supply. I don't care. But if you're wearing a suit, I'm happy.
Yeah, very true. And I found myself in the middle of that too. I used to wear jean shorts, but that's a different story for a different time. So the Hanger Project started as a school project, right? So when does that really kick off?
It really wasn't a school project. So, I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and this will just kind of lead you guys into the full story. And, I'd always been fascinated by high-end menswear, not fashion, but classic menswear. And that interest really started in high school. And for whatever reason, I just was always intrigued by the idea that you could have something made today the same way it was made 100 years ago by hand. It just was always fascinated me. And, so I'm going to school at the University of Texas, and, I'm on Ask Andy About Clothes, which was the only thing out there at that time. It's embarrassing, but now it was like over 15 years ago. And so Ask Andy About Clothes was the only thing on there. The internet really had just gotten started, if you will. And, that's where I really kind of came of age, if you will, in terms of understanding what was out there in the world. And so I'm at the University of Texas. I'm studying, business honors, finance, and economics. And everyone has to take Art History 101, right? The idea of sitting in an auditorium with 1,000 other kids taking Art History 101 was just something that I just was never excited about. So, I'm approaching my senior year, and my counselor was like, well, you've got to take art history, right? It's required. And I said, I don't want to take it. She said, well, there's actually, and she brought this to my attention, there's this costume design class in the Department of Theater and Arts and Tailoring. She said, we've seen other kids go ask the professor if they could take this class. It was like one other person that she knew of. And if he'll let you take it, we'll allow you to substitute that class for your art history credit. So I said, well, that sounds cool. So, I walk over to the Department of Theater and Arts, and I probably was the first business student ever to set foot in that building. And I walk into this graduate professor's office and tell him that I wanted to take his costume design class in tailoring and substitute that for art history. And he thought I was crazy. He was like, well, have you ever used a sewing machine before? And I said, no. He said, have you ever even sewn a button on? And I said, no, I've never even touched a needle and thread. And he was just like, if you're crazy enough to want to take this class, I can't tell you no. So he allowed me to do it. He made me come in on Fridays to take a remedial like sewing class with him, just 1 hour a week on Fridays, just so that I could even do the work. And he never expected me to finish the class, because the tailoring class was actually the hardest class he taught in the entire costume design course, because as we all know, tailoring is actually very complex and a lot of hard work goes into it. And so he never thought I would finish the course, but I hand tailored my own suit jacket from a bolt fabric, and I'd stitched every single thread myself. And if it weren't for the help of a bespoke tailor in Austin, I wouldn't have had sleeves, because I never would have been able to attach those myself. But other than that, I've got the jackets hanging in my office. I finished it myself, and it was that experience that really seeded and developed in a very powerful way my understanding and passion for handcrafted quality. Because for the first time, I knew in a very practical way all of the incredible work that went into a bespoke garment. And so it was the hardest class I took in college. It was the only class in college I pulled a double all-nighter for in order to finish one of my basted fittings. And, it really affected me. And so I graduate college. I take all my graduation money. I buy my first custom suit, coincidentally from that tailor that helped me sew the sleeves on. And it came on a plastic hanger. And it just seemed really disappointing that here was this garment that I'd spent, $2,500 on, which was a ton of money at that time. It's certainly more than I've ever spent on any other garment, that was made by hand by someone that spent, who knows how many hours doing this, a product of a lifetime of his passion. And it came on a plastic hanger that didn't fit. And so I just started my first job. I was on Ask Andy About Clothes complaining about this. And a bunch of other people started just commenting on that particular thread, joining the conversation and complaining also about how difficult it was to find a high quality wooden suit hanger, which, I'd never thought about. And so, but at that time, nobody was doing this. And so you literally had these guys that scoured the earth for the best clothing. I mean, they had their shirts made in Italy and their suits made in London, traveling the globe. I mean, that was the type of person that was on those forums at that time. And they were talking about how they had to go beg their Neiman Marcus sales rep for a few extra hangers. And so around that time, the idea of these group buys was really beginning. And so I just said to the group, I said, look, I just graduated college. I don't have any money, but I've got a ton of free time. I'll go out and see if I can find someone to make hangers for us. But if I do this, you guys have to prepay, right? Because I'm not going to speculate that you guys are going to buy anything.
It's like and boutique so that really, Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Kickstarter was the idea I was left with. It's like that was the better idea that I somehow missed. But it was an original Kickstarter. That's what it was. I mean, these guys prepaid. They didn't know me from John, and they had to wait 75 to 90 days, crossing their fingers, hoping that I didn't steal their money. But that was the beginning of the hanger project. And I tried to come up with a clever name, right? Like Gentleman's Hangers, or I don't know. But, my roommate at the time just said, why don't you just call it what you've been calling it this entire time, which was the Hanger Project? Because what was it? It was just the Hanger Project in the same way that it could have been another project for school, right? So that's how the name came about. And you got the entire story as a part of that.
Yeah, I see. So it wasn't actually part of schooling, but it was a direct result of what you experienced in school.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I was very involved extracurricularly at UT. And so I was always doing like a million projects. So, I really credit the extracurricular stuff at UT with allowing me or kind of enabling me to start my business, because it just was so natural to do it. I mean, like, throw up a website, put together some really cheap and dirty marketing. It was just like another school project.
And did you, through college or before that, had you been exposed to entrepreneurship in any way?
Not really. I mean, I come from a family of car dealers. So, they were kind of business owners, but not like serial entrepreneurs. Yeah, I mean, no, not really.
Okay, so your first real brush then is going out and sourcing these hangers. Did you end up finding somebody who did them locally?
Yeah, I mean, we found someone based in the United States that, I mean, I really got lucky in retrospect because I found what was the best manufacturer of wooden hangers. And I didn't have to deal direct with China because, there's a ton of country risk associated with that. And, what we did differently, and it wasn't rocket science, was, what I did is I just basically, I didn't innovate or invent anything new, but I basically pulled together from a bunch of different characteristics of hangers and combined it into a single hanger that no one had ever done before, right? So a 2.5-inch shoulder flare, well, that's not super novel. I mean, you can go get an Oxford hanger that has a 2-inch shoulder flare, but we did a 2.5-inch shoulder flare. We combined it with a felted trouser bar, and we did it in 4 widths, and we did it with, a special hook that won't unscrew, and we did it with a real high quality, retail level finish that is durable. And it just was kind of all those things together that no one had done before. And, whenever I developed the hangers, it was really developed exclusively around the concerns of end consumers, which prior to that point, no one had done. I mean, if you wanted hangers, you had to go beg your retailer for hangers, or if you went to the Container Store, even to this day, the hangers you see at the Container Store are just cheap retail hangers being resold to consumers, at like an absurd markup. But there's nothing special about it. It's the same hanger that they'd sell to, Dillard's. And so, the hanger project was really about the idea of, look, if you can afford to invest in quality if you know how to take care of it. Your garments spend the majority of their time on the hangers, and the person that bears the cost of inadequate hangers is the consumer, right? The retailer doesn't care. They never see the garment long enough to actually deal with the cost of cheap hangers. And so, if you're someone that's got nice clothing, you need nice hangers that really protect, extend the life of the garment. And that's what the hanger project was about.
I've always wondered with like investing in like hangers in the same way as like shoe trees or like garment bags or other things to extend the life of your garment. Have you guys ever like A/B tested like a bottom of the barrel hanger with like your hanger just to see what the long-term effect is on like a dress shirt?
Well, I mean, dress shirts are, probably not a great example because, dress shirts have a really tight weave to the fabric. So you're not going to end up with any stretching, right? But just think about your t-shirts. I mean, whenever you pull a t-shirt out of the closet and it's got shoulder bumps, that's because the hanger was too narrow. If the hanger had extended all the way to the edge of the shoulder, you wouldn't end up with any distortion of the shoulder line with shoulder bumps. And to a certain degree, the same thing happens with suits. I mean, you've all seen a suit that the shoulder line is just, totally distorted because it was hung on a hanger that was too narrow. Now, the most important thing is support, right? So the size of the hanger. And the second most important thing is probably the width, right? That is properly sized, is not too wide or too narrow. But, you can get those things out of a plastic hanger. I mean, there are some Manetti plastic hangers that have a nice shoulder flare that support the jacket that aren't going to distort it. But the problem is with the plastic hanger is that at the end of the day, it's still plastic. Your hangers are one of the first things you touch whenever you go into your closet in the morning. And so, my kind of approach to that is that, if you're investing in high quality items that are beautifully made of fine materials, you should hang it on a proper wooden hanger. It honors the garment. In the same way that you wouldn't go, buy a Picasso and then, have it framed at Michael's. You wouldn't do it, So, so it absolutely makes a difference. I mean, trousers, like a felted trouser bar. I mean, there's no question that a locking trouser bar creases the trousers across the mid thigh. It
Hmm.
just happens. Now, maybe some people just never notice it because that's the way it's always been, but it happens. And, a felted trouser bar won't do that, won't do it at all.
So do you find that, especially like at the beginning when you were first getting customers and growing the business, did people kind of, did you just have to find the people that already understood this and knew the value, or is it part of it like educating people?
Yeah. Well, that was the hardest part, right? So, um, I mean, I got lucky in that we started on Ask Andy About Clothes. Like all those guys, like they didn't need any convincing. I mean, they are the clothing fanatics. But the most challenging thing was expanding the business beyond that. And so it did require a certain degree of education because, unlike shoe trees, where people have always been buying shoe trees, nobody has really bought hangers. So the whole entire idea and the consumer's background of obviousness was always that I get my hangers for free. And so convincing someone that's used to getting something for free all of a sudden to pay for it, has always been a little bit of a challenge and has required education. And so that I think, was the most challenging part of really growing the Hanger Project. That's why in the beginning we did a lot of PR, reaching out to like the Wall Street Journal, Esquire magazine, was to try to tell the story of the garment care story, to people that never thought of it before.
So the first time you do the project, though, you're working at like your first job out of school.
Yeah. So I was doing bankruptcy consulting here in Dallas. Um, so it was a passion project, kind of a side hustle.
Right. And then at what point do you go from, okay, this is a project that I enjoy, to making the jump?
Yeah. Well, so the Wall Street Journal wrote an article about us. It was November 17th, 2007. And, I'd been doing a little bit of just PR, like on the side, basically sending samples to people in the press. And someone at the Wall Street Journal got a hanger. And that next week, they were assigned to write a article called the Catalogue Critic, where they basically took a product, shopped it from several different people, and then found an expert to compare those items. And so she said, "Oh, well, this would be interesting. Why don't we do this on hangers?" And so, yeah, that came out November 17th. It was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, right whenever everyone starts thinking about what they're going to buy for Christmas. And we were given a full half page in the weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal. And it was the last page of the weekend edition, which, depending on how you read your Wall Street Journal, is the first page because a lot of people read it backwards. And that's what gave me the opportunity. I mean, we exploded. I mean, we sold through all of our inventory in like 4 days. I didn't even have a phone number on the website, and so that's what really created the opportunity for me to leave and go do it full time.
And that's all pre-Shopify era, so you had to like
Oh
hire
yeah,
a guy to
pre-Shopify.
develop
Absolutely.
develop the website.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, the number of mistakes I made whenever I started the business is just staggering. I mean, it's like I try not to think about it because I just cringe. So I had a buddy who knew some web developers in Guatemala, and I paid them like $3,000 to do a website for us, and it had a custom PayPal integration. So that was our shopping cart. It was a totally custom, like there were no shopping carts then. And, luckily it worked, but, like a great example is the entire website couldn't be crawled by Google. It was like, I think not until a year and a half or 2 years later that I finally started working with another web developer, and even the whole entire notion of SEO was like even present for me, that we realized that the website was incapable of being crawled by Google. I mean, can you imagine that? I just was like,
It's like somebody drives up to your house and you're like, there's no curb for your driveway here.
yes, it's like we forgot there's no front door, so, things like that. And, the first year I thought I was a rock star. The second year was me slowly realizing I had no idea what I was doing. The third year I was panicking. And the fourth year, I always say, is whenever I started actually growing a business. And that was around the time where I really began to think of us as something more than just a hanger company, and really thinking about us in terms of garment care. And so we went from hangers to garment care. So that's where the garment bag and the garment brushes came in. And then we went from there to shoe care. And shoe care was, in a lot of ways, what really transformed the business, because there's just a larger market for shoe care than there are for hangers. And there's more people thinking about shoe polish than there are thinking about, that I need to go buy hangers. And, that's whenever I got connected with Saphir. And, I've been used to doing educational tutorials back whenever we were selling hangers, because we had to educate people. And so the idea of doing shoe care tutorials just came naturally. And that's what allowed us in the beginning to really do such a great job selling shoe polish, is because we were the first people to really teach someone how to properly maintain their shoes from like a European philosophy, right? I mean, Americans think of shoe care in terms of a tin of Kiwi shoe polish, right? But, as we've all kind of discovered, shoe care is actually a lot more nuanced and really a lot more interesting than that. And, once we started writing those tutorials, what allowed us to sell, instead of $12 worth of shoe polish, sell someone $100 worth of shoe polish.
So like the old school blogging days.
Yeah, this is old school blogging. Yeah, totally old school blogging. Yeah.
And was the idea there, like, now that you've discovered the world of SEO, to start getting some traffic around like these questions that people had about clothing care?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, I wish I'd been more aggressive on content development back then. I mean, we were probably 2 or 3 years late to video. We should have been doing that earlier than we were. I mean, I think whenever you own a small business, it's difficult not to get tied up in the minutia of running the business to still be able to see the forest from the trees. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the most challenging things. It's probably, one of the things that's still challenging is, now we're larger, we've got more people, but, whenever I come to work, I have to deal with payables, and I've got to deal with accounting, and I have to make sure that, the video production guys are doing their work, and that the website's running, and this, that, and the other. And it's less time sitting around thinking strategically about, what's the next big move for us. And, I think the other challenge for me is, I was 24 whenever I quit to go do this full time. I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm. Now you got a wife and kid to feed.
Yeah, now I've got like a wife and 3 kids.
3 kids, yeah, and the employees. They're all in there. So at what point then do you go from blogging to knowing that you need to do or getting into YouTube and Instagram?
Yeah, so, YouTube really started more out of a project to support Facebook advertising. So we said, the biggest challenge for us always had been, how do we market ourselves to new customers? I mean, if someone is Googling Saphir shoe polish or wooden hangers on Google, they find us, right? Because, we're kind of the only people doing it. But the challenge for me had always been, how do we get in front of people that weren't looking for us, in a real top of funnel marketing way. And so, gosh, this was like 3 years ago, I suppose. Seems like forever ago now. Facebook was still, I guess, popular.
Not disdained by most of the
media.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not. I mean, most people are kind of seeing Facebook for what it is now. But anyway, so back then it was like, well, we need to be doing Facebook because it was the hot thing. Everyone was like, my Facebook marketing is incredible. It's, driving so much business. I said, well, we kind of need to figure out what's going on with Facebook. And the majority of Facebook advertising at that time, at least the effective advertising, was video based. So the idea to do video tutorials was really to give us something to then promote on Facebook. And, what we discovered really quickly was that, in fact, YouTube was doing more to drive traffic than Facebook was. And so we abandoned Facebook altogether and instead just focused on exclusively doing YouTube content. And it was great. I mean, I love YouTube. I mean, I love the video production because, it allows us to, as an online retailer, it allows us to bridge the gap between operating a business in some vacuum in a industrial warehouse space and actually still interacting with customers. And so even though it's through video, it allows me to, really maintain a relationship and interact with customers.
At this point, how much of your like that top of funnel would you say is paid versus earned, through video or other content?
We don't do much paid, customer acquisition. And we do kind of the basic Google stuff, but the majority of everything we do is YouTube based. And, YouTube surpassed Google a year and a half ago as our number one source of customer acquisition. I mean, we post-purchase survey everyone that transacts on Hanger Project. And one of the questions we, of course, ask them is, how did you learn about us? And, we get more from YouTube, than we get from Google, which totally makes sense if you think about it, because we're able to teach people how to use the polish. I mean, people that had never thought of ever shining their shoes now are able to see what a difference it makes, and they go, "Wow, that's amazing! I never thought about that. I want to do it," and that's how they come to us.
It's really cool. Do you have a lot of repeat customers, or like people buying like shoe polish and they come back for hangers?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so. I mean, that's the goal at the end of the day, is that someone discovers us through shoe polish and we kind of sell them in the whole entire, continuum, product portfolio. So yeah, I mean, we try to do that through email marketing.
So what's the next big thing? Like, 6-12 months out, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for us, the YouTube content continues to go from strength to strength. I mean, we just hit 75,000 subscribers. We should be at 100, by the end of the year. We'll do 500,000 views a month. And so I see a meaningful opportunity to do more kind of editorial kind of discovery stuff. I mean, if you look at the content that we've just recently been putting out, I mean, we spent 2 weeks in London, kind of around the time of the World Championship of shoemaking and World Championship of shoe shining. And we have some absolutely great content that explores the world of quality craftsmanship and tradition. I mean, we visited Huntsman, we visited Henry Poole, we did a walking tour of Savile Row. We spent an entire day with John Lobb St. James's. We were the only video production crew that they've allowed in there other than the BBC. So, we've got some absolutely incredible content that is coming out right now that I think has potential to turn into something more than just a YouTube series. And so that's, I think, the next big thing for us is how do we take what we're doing on YouTube and somehow, leverage that to reach a broader audience. So, we're publishing some of our stuff on Amazon, so you can watch more of our kind of feature length stuff on Amazon now. And we'd like to see ourselves, doing something, on Netflix or on, I don't know, something. I mean, there's all these streaming services now that need content. And I think the world of like quality craftsmanship and tradition, kind of like a travel series, but through the gentleman's lifestyle, could be interesting.
Yeah, that Huntsman video, I watched that this morning, and I was like, I'm a huge like Kingsman fan too, and so like just to see all those tie-ins, that was so great.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun. I mean, I enjoy it, and I'm not that weird, right? So I would think that other people would enjoy it also.
I feel the same. I did a tour of just like a month ago. I toured Horween's Leather Factory, and I toured Alan Edmonds, and I'm sitting on all this footage, and like I also watched it because I was like, all right, I need to get this video done, but it like totally inspired me to kind of almost finish that videos.
Yeah, I mean, we want to do Horween so badly. The problem is our production crew is like 4 people now, so in order for us to go somewhere, it's kind of expensive.
Oh yeah.
The trip to London and Paris was incredibly expensive. So, but I think we'll be back in New York sometime soon with Huntsman to do some really interesting content with their cutting room in New York City, which is actually doing really well. I mean, they were the first Savile Row tailor to actually open up a dedicated cutting theater in New York City, like outside of London. And, they're doing great. Their head cutter, Ralph, is incredibly talented. So we're hoping to do some content there. And if we're in New York, we'll definitely film some other stuff. So there's no shortage of content, I mean, there's so much great stuff. I mean, shoe care tutorials, there's more of that to do. We've got an extensive series on shoe reviews that we've started filming. And so, we really want to help the well-dressed just learn how to take care of the wardrobes and kind of support and encourage and embellish that pursuit.
Nice. That's exciting stuff. Yeah, it's a great thing about content is like there's just a never-ending list of fun stuff to tackle.
I mean, I could never run out. I mean, we spent 2 weeks in London, and we could have spent easily another month, and even then begun to just barely scratch the surface. And we haven't even touched Italy or France for that matter. So, there's a lot of exciting stuff, and we hope to continue to do that. And the way we monetize the channel is by selling hangers and shoe polish. So, if you need hangers or shoe polish and like our content, come to the Hanger Project. Don't go to Amazon. We also just released a collection of ties. That's really exciting. So we're trying to get into a little bit more kind of our own branded stuff that we've developed. And we've got an incredible collection of ties that are getting ready to launch. So that's kind of like, trying to expand the product portfolio in some thoughtful ways.
Yeah, very cool, man. Well, we have a segment called Rapid Fire that you haven't prepared for, but if you're up for it, we'll ask you a series of questions, one or two word answers. Here we go. Oxfords or brogues?
Oxfords.
Lifting or cardio?
Cardio.
Loafers or sneakers?
Loafers.
In terms of menswear, spring, summer, or fall, winter?
Probably fall, winter.
Nice. Morning shower or evening shower?
I do both.
Nice. Dallas. That's Dallas for you.
Yeah. Cold shower in the morning. I'm a huge cold shower in the morning guy.
All right. Nice.
I can't get started until I have one.
Okay. Jeans, chinos, or trousers?
Gosh, tough question. I mean, the right answer is probably trousers, but in Texas, I wear a lot of denim.
Nice. Favorite James Bond actor?
Oof. Gosh. I mean, it's hard to, was it Daniel Craig? He's probably my favorite.
Nice. Notch lapels or peak lapels?
Notched.
Cool. And then last question, if you're taking your cold morning shower, getting pumped up for the day, like you have a big day of meetings, what song are you listening to?
Gosh, I listen to a lot of classical music, to be totally honest. So either I'm not listening to music in the morning, or I listen to, this is going to sound weird, but morning prayer. I like, choral music. So I'll listen to morning prayer while I'm getting ready in the morning.
That works. Got to set your day for success.
Yeah. So, there's a beautiful website called Cradle of Prayer, and they do the Book of Common Prayer, morning prayer. They record it, and you just sit and listen to it. So, I listen to that a lot in the morning.
Nice. Well, you've survived rapid fire. We got some.
Yeah, good. Did I pass? How did I score?
You did pass. Yeah, we don't. We'll get a grade to you later once we analyze your answers against.
Thumbs up or thumbs down? Were they the right answer is the wrong one?
Yeah. No, that was good. Yeah, and we'll
enjoyed this. I mean, I could talk forever. You get me going on some of these things. It's like, this was was precursory. It's like we didn't even get into the meat.
We'll have to have you back in a few months or a year and get the update.
Yeah, please, by all means. And, check out the YouTube channel, Kirby Allison on YouTube. And, of course, the website, web store, hangerproject.com. And, we love to help the well-dressed acquire and care for the wardrobes while exploring the world of quality craftsmanship and tradition. I mean, that's what we're about. So hopefully, most of your guys know about us. But if not, check us out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on, Kirby.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Buttoned Up Podcast, a collaboration between John Shanahan of The Cavalier and Brock McGough of Modest Man, and we will see you next week.